Hello everyone. In this lecture, we will cover some of the basic mathematical functions in Excel. But before that, let us understand the small difference between formulas and functions in Excel. Most people use it interchangeably, but there is a small difference between the two. A formula is an expression which calculates the value of a cell. It can be any expression. What we wrote in the last class were mathematical formulas such as is equal to a1 plus b1. A function is a predefined formula. Functions allow you to use descriptive names to automatically apply formulas for you. For example, sum, average, etc. are functions. We will see how to use them. We use functions because they increase user productivity when working with Excel. So I hope the difference is clear. Anything that is calculated in a cell is a formula, but functions are predefined formulas of Excel with descriptive names. Now let's see some of the mathematical functions we use in Excel. Let's first look at the data we have. In this data, we have scores of 5 students in 3 subjects: Maths, Science and English. We want to find out the total marks scored by these students. For this, we can simply write the formula as earlier using the plus symbols, or we can use the sum function. Let's use the sum function this time. We go to the cell and start typing is equal to sum, start the bracket. Within the bracket, a function takes parameters on which it operates. For example, for the sum function, we need to give all the numbers which we want to add. There are 2 ways to enter these numbers. One is to enter each cell individually, separated by a comma. Let's do it this way for this row. First cell, comma, second cell, comma, the third cell. Close the bracket, hit enter, and this is the sum of these 3 numbers. If you click that cell again, in the formula bar, you can see the function applied. Instead of using cell reference, you could write the value of the cell also, like sum 95, 83, 81. That would give you the same result. But as discussed in the last lecture, using cell reference has some benefits. For the student 2, we will use the second method. Instead of entering each individual cell, I am going to select the whole series this time. We start again with is equal to sum. Within bracket, we use the mouse to select the entire range of cells that we want to add. Close the bracket and hit enter. Let's compare the difference between these two formulas in the formula bar. In the first formula, you can see that the 3 cells are separated by commas. In the second formula, only the endpoints of the series are written and between them is a colon. So this represents that everything between M6 and O6 is to be added. Can you see the power of sum function over the normal addition formula using plus symbols? If I have to add 100 numbers, I do not need to write the cell reference of 100 cells. Just select the entire series within a sum function. Now for the third student, I want you to notice another feature of Excel. When in a cell we type is equal to, Excel expects that we are going to enter a function and it automatically starts recommending functions as we type the first few alphabets of the function name. If you do not want the function, do not bother, just continue typing. But if you want the suggested function, press the tab key. It will auto complete the function as well as it will start the bracket for you. Lastly, to calculate for other students, we will simply drag the formula by going to the bottom right corner and extending it to other students. Using any function is similar to this. Just type the name of the function, give the parameters in the bracket and hit enter. That's it. Let's cover other mathematical functions quickly now. Next, we look at the min function, which returns the minimum value from the input data. So to get the minimum score in maths, we go to this cell and start typing is equal to min tab. When we hit tab, this function will be selected. In the parameters, we need to select the range of cells. So these 5 were the score of students in maths. We close the bracket and hit enter. You can see that 45 is the minimum score scored by any student in maths. We can extend this formula for science and English also. So 53 is the minimum score in science and 55 is the minimum score in English. Next, we look at the max function. Max function returns the maximum value from the input data. So to get maximum value of score in maths, we go to this cell and write is equal to max. If you want to select the second formula here, you can use the arrow key to go to second and then press tab. Now we need to give the series from which we have to select the maximum score. You can see that 99 is the maximum marks in maths. We can extend it for science and English also. Next is the average function. This function returns the average or the mean value of the input numbers. If you remember, in the last lecture, we calculated average using usual mathematical operators. This time we use the function. So to find average marks of each student, go to this cell, type is equal to average. When Excel suggests average function, you can hit the tab key. After this, select the range of cells for which you want to calculate the average. Press enter. Drag to get the average for other students. Once we have calculated the average marks, we may want to assign ranks to students also, as to which student scored the highest marks and who scored the least. To rank the students basis their average score, go to the next cell, type is equal to rank average. The first parameter is the number whose rank you want to find. This will be the score of the student. The second parameter in this function is the series from which rank is to be calculated. So this will be the scores of all the students. The last parameter is how should the ranking be done, whether highest should be ranked 1 or lowest should be ranked 1. If you want highest to be ranked 1, such as the case here, the third parameter will be 0. For the other scenario, it will be 1. So we enter 0 and press enter. You can see that the average score of student 1 makes the student 1 second in class. Important thing to note here is, if we drag this formula down, the reference cell range will change. So the reference cell range changes from P5 to P9 to P6 to P10. P6 to P10 is not the correct reference range. In the last lecture, we discussed how to maintain the reference range. To lock the reference range, we need to use dollar signs. To do this, go to the reference values and add dollar symbols. There is a shortcut for adding dollar symbols also. Just click on the cell on which you want to add dollar symbols and press F4. Dollar symbols will be added to both row and column name. This will restrain reference values to change while dragging. So now let's extend it for other students. Now you can see that the reference cell remains from P5 to P9. And student 4 is now at rank 1 and student 5 is the student with least average marks. Next, we move on to sum product formula. In this formula, we input 2 or more series of numbers and it returns the sum of product of individual elements of these two series of numbers. For example, if we want to assign weightage to the marks of maths, science and English of these students before calculating their ranks, we have written the relative weightage of each subject here. Now I want to find the total marks as per weightage. That is, I want to find the sum of 95 into 2 plus 83 into 1 plus 81 into 1.3. This will be the total marks for student 1. To do this, we go to the cell and type is equal to sum product. Then we select the first series of numbers, comma, select the second series of numbers and press enter. We get a value of 378.3. This is calculated by adding 95 into 2 plus 83 into 1 plus 81 into 1.3. This can be dragged down, but before dragging it, remember to use dollar symbols for the weightages. We can drag this down now. And here we have the total marks of students as per the weightage. Next we look at rand function. Rand function is used to generate random value between 0 and 1. This is an amazing function. It takes no input parameter. It just generates a number between 0 and 1 randomly. But why do we need random numbers? Random numbers can be used to simulate chance events like throwing a dice or tossing a coin. For example, say we want to randomly select a class monitor or a class representative out of these 5 students. I will generate one random number for each student. Whoever gets the largest number becomes class rep. So we go to this cell and type is equal to RAND. And enter. You can see a random value is generated for student 1 We can drag it down for all the students. We can see that student 5 has the maximum value, and now student 5 can be selected as the class representative. Next, we move to rand between function. This will return random value between the range that we have provided. So this function takes two values as inputs and generates a random number between these two numbers. In our example, for student 6, we can randomly assign marks for maths by going to this cell and typing is equal to rand between. And giving the range as 40 and 100. This student has scored 56 marks in maths. We can extend this to science and English also. You can see that every time you change any cell, the value of rand and rand between gets refreshed. So now this student has scored 88 in maths, 42 in science and 77 in English. Let's see this one more time. If I add any value to a new cell and press enter, these values are refreshed. Basically, doing any operation in the Excel sheet triggers a refreshing of these values. To stop this from happening, we can use the paste as value technique. So the thing is that these cells contain formulas, whereas we are interested in the value already generated by these formulas. The formulas have already served their purpose. So what we do is we copy the contents of these cells. The content of the cell is a formula. You can see that by pasting it in any other cell. You can see in the formula bar, when I paste it, it still contains the formula. But we want to keep the value and not the formula. So we copy the cells and paste them here as values. This is the option for pasting as values. This comes only when you have copied a formula. It basically gives the option to copy paste a formula as a formula or the value calculated by the formula. Now, as I have pasted the values, I have the randomly generated values with me, which won't refresh every time I perform any operation. There are several other mathematical formulas, such as the ones in this sheet. We encourage you to try these on your own. You can also find a list of all the formulas in the Excel menu. Click on the Formulas tab and select Maths and Trigonometry. Here you can see the list of all the maths related functions. That's all for this lecture. See you in the next one.